We are so excited about that series coming up. Just like John said, hope you'll all join us, plus a million of your friends. Want to take a quick second and first of all, welcome everybody to church. And then if you could give it up for all of our locations, Cape Coral, our State Line location at Hananiga, all of our God Behind Bars and online. We love having you guys be a part. It's going to be a great day. I want to take a really quick second too and greet another amazing group of people who are in the house. And you guys, all of our City First Leadership College students are back today. It's amazing. Dozens of young people have converged upon Rockford, Illinois to be a part of City First Church, and it's so cool because at all of our locations, they get to be a part of what God is doing, and we are excited to have them here. You guys, they are a part of so much that happens at City First Church. You guys don't even know. They're all behind the scenes. They're amazing. They come here to help build the church, serve the local church, grow in God, and learn leadership, and it's pretty amazing. We're excited to have them. Well, we are in this series today, and we have been for the last few weeks, called Hidden Figures, where we are talking about some obscure people in the Bible, people that you probably have not heard of before. And many of them don't even have names, but we've dove in and we've been learning about life principles and how to follow Jesus better by hearing about their stories. And so we're going to do the same today. I'm going to introduce you to a couple of hidden figures that I promise you have probably never heard of before. You cannot pronounce their names because I can't pronounce their names. So we're going to learn from them today. And the verses that we're going to be reading are found in Philippians chapter 4, verses 1 through 3. And before I introduce you to these hidden figures, I'm going to start out with verse 1. And it's actually, if you guys aren't aware of this, the book of Philippians was actually a letter that was written to the church of Philippi long time ago. Okay, the Apostle Paul, the famous Apostle Paul, wrote a check. He did not write a check. He wrote a letter. Okay. You can write a check. I'm sure he wrote checks too. But he wrote a letter to this church and was just encouraging them in their faith. So we get to dive in, and he's actually here. This is chapter 4. This is the end of the letter. And he is kind of wrapping things up, you can tell. And so, but I want to read this first verse because it kind of gives the context and just his heart for what he's about ready to dive in verse 2 and 3. So here, let's read. It says, "My dear friends, I love you so much. I do want the very best for you. You make me feel such joy. You fill me with such pride. Don't waver. Stay on track. Steady in God." So now, once I read the next two verses, you're going to be like, okay, now I know why you read the first verse, because I'm trying to give you some context of how the Apostle Paul is presenting what these next couple verses are, his heart for them, okay? Like just who he is as a person. You can tell that he's like a pastor. He's going, listen, I love you as a church. You're amazing. You bring me such joy, and I want to see you not waver, and I want to see you stay steady in your faith. And then he jumps in, okay, to verse 2. And this is where the names get a little crazy. All right, so just bear with me. I am not a theologian, so I'm going to probably slaughter these names. And it's okay. It says this: "I urge Euodia," see, I told you, "and Syntyche to iron out their differences and make up. God doesn't want his children holding grudges. And oh yes, Zygus, since you're right there to help them work things out, do your very best with them. These women worked for the message," meaning the good news, "hand in hand with Clement and me and with the other veterans, worked as hard as any of us." So the two main people in this story we're going to shorten their names today, okay? We can do this. It is not heresy. Okay, we're just going to call them Dia and Cinti. How many of you are with me? Because you don't want me mutilating their names. Okay, Dia and Cinti. Those are our people today. These are our hidden figures that we are going to learn from. And so what's happening in the stories, you can tell. So Paul starts out, he's being very, like, I love you guys. And then he goes straight in. He's basically, you guys know what's happening here. He's calling out these two people. He's going, hey, Dia and Cinti, work out your differences. Some of you, one of your biggest fears is being in a room like this and somebody calling you out. I know it's one of my biggest fears, but everybody kind of wants to like blend into the, just kind of like, no, I mean, your worst fear, I'd be like, hey, you up there, come down here right now. You'd be like, I'm never going to that church again, calling people out. But here is Paul, and he calls them out because he loves them dearly. He loves them dearly because something happened here. These two people, something has happened, and they've had a little falling out. But before we keep going into this story, I want to share with you a little background about Dia and Sinti. The first time that the Apostle Paul comes to Philippi, he shows up, and he ends up going, he hears about this prayer meeting that's happening on a beach. That's for you, Cape, okay? So on a beach, and so he shows up, and he ends up meeting a group of women who are there for a prayer meeting. And these women are followers of the Jewish God Jehovah. And so Paul ends up telling them about Jesus, and many of these women become followers of Jesus. Now, theologians believe that our friends, Dia and Sinti, are probably at this original meeting, and they end up giving their lives to Jesus. And what happens after they do that is that they become like crazy involved, okay? They start moving and grooving for God. They become leaders. They're working hand in hand, okay, with the Apostle Paul, building the church, bringing the good news of Jesus Christ. So really what these women were, right? They're church leaders. They are people who are, they are running the prayer group. They're helping feed the poor. They're life group leaders. I don't think they called them life groups back then, but they're life group leaders. They're on a serve team, I'm sure. I mean, these are the women that are helping coordinate the school backpacks, okay, getting ready for the community, okay? These are the ladies. They're amazing, amazing people. They're heavily involved in the church, but something happens. Something happens, and they have a falling out. They are hurt with each other for some reason. We don't know what happened. We don't get the real nitty gritty of the story like some of you would want. You're like, hey, well, what did they do to each other? I don't know. But we don't know this. They know that somebody said something, or somebody did something, or somebody forgot something, like a birthday, something like that, and they're offended now, okay? Something happened. So then what does the Apostle Paul say in verse 2? It says this, I urge, everybody say the word urge. Ready, 1, 2, 3, urge. I urge Dia and Sinti to iron out their differences and make up. God doesn't want his children holding grudges. We've already read that. But what is a grudge? Okay? What is a grudge? I wanted to read that because that word is powerful there. What is a grudge? Well, I'm glad you asked because I have a definition for you. All right, a grudge is this, a persistent feeling of ill will or resentment resulting from a past insult or injury. A grudge. A persistent feeling of ill will or resentment resulting from a past insult or injury. Now here's the deal. I know this. If I were to ask for a show of hands in this room or at any of our locations, and I said, have any of you ever been hurt and held a grudge against someone? I can guarantee you 100% of the people would raise their hands. Why? Because we're human, okay? And there will be, every single day, there will be opportunities for us to be hurt and pick up a grudge. It's just going to happen. It happens to all of us. Now, let me if you've had a grudge, maybe these things have happened to you, okay? Have you ever told someone off in a made-up conversation in your mind? Anybody ever done that? I'm the only one, obviously. Made up a conversation and just told somebody off. You're laughing because you're like, the pastor just said, told somebody off. Have you ever wished for bad things to happen to someone who has done you wrong? Have you ever done that? Have you ever, something happens to somebody who's hurt you and you hear about it and you're kind of like, I'm glad that happened to them. Ever had that happen? Have you ever typed out a very long, venomous email and then deleted it? Or saved the draft? Or sent it? Have you ever done that? That's a grudge. That's what a grudge is. It's something that is persistent. It's a feeling of ill will or resentment for something, a hurt, a past injury. We as humans are great at holding grudges against each other. Men, women, young, old, rich, poor, it doesn't matter who you are. We all can carry grudges. And do you know that there will be times that we are tempted to take a hurt that has been done to us, because a hurt isn't instinctively and isn't just naturally a grudge. A hurt gets turned into a grudge. A hurt gets turned into a grudge. And so, but what did Paul say? He said, but God doesn't want his children holding grudges. Here's the deal. Paul knows, and I believe this, okay, that Paul knows the power of a grudge. And that's why he's addressing these two, why he's calling them out in the middle of the letter that everybody's going to be reading, okay? Because that's what these letters did. They didn't just go to one person. They went to the church to encourage them and to spur them on in their faith, okay? And so everybody's reading this, all right? But he's saying, listen, I know the power of a grudge. That's why he urges. Remember how we repeated that word urge? Urge. It actually means to plead with. The original language, the word plead means this. It means to come near. So can't you just see the heart of the Apostle Paul to these women? He's calling them near and saying, hey, listen, this is important. I need you, okay? I need you to work this out. It is that important. It's kind of like me as a parent sometimes, you know? Like I'm sure Paul is sitting here going, I've heard about what's happened with Dia and Cynthia, and I don't know the whole story, but all I know is that I need them to work it out. When my two older boys were little, they'd be like 5 and 6, and you know, I'd be like, everything would be peaceful. And then how many of you know, all of a sudden you hear like the scream from the other room, Mom, Dad, Caden did this, Connor did this. And you're just like, oh my goodness, okay, I don't know. So they come running. And as a parent, my job, have you ever tried to discover what happened in an argument? Well, what happened? Well, blah, blah, blah. Well, what was your side of the story? Well, by the end of it, you're like, I don't know, just work it out. Okay, and I feel like that's the Apostle Paul. Paul's like, listen, I know that something happened here. But I don't know your side of the story, Dia, and I don't know your side of the story, Cynthia, but this is all I know. I don't care what happened. What's done is done. I need you to work it out. I need you to work it out. You can see his like parent heart in that moment, calling them near, saying, I need you to work it out. I don't know who's at fault, but you got to work it out. In verse 2, he continues on, right? And he says, work out your differences and make up. In other words, do the hard work of making up. Can we be honest here? If somebody has hurt you, it's way easier just to let things go, brush things under a rug, and not address it, and just move on. It's easy just to go, okay, whatever, I'm just never going to talk to that person again. It's easy to do that kind of stuff, but guess what? Paul here is saying, work it out. Work it out. See, nowadays, we don't sit down and talk things out. We just kind of move on. Because why? It's awkward to have the conversation. It's uncomfortable to bring things up. It's inconvenient to have to work things out. It's complicated. It's messy. It's not easy. And so what do we do instead of working it out and having the conversation and doing the hard work? We stop talking to that friend, to that neighbor, to that coworker. We start going to a different church. We start going to a different service. We block their calls. We become silent. We walk down a different hallway. We take the stairs instead of the elevator at work because we don't want to run into that person. We start going to a different gym. Start going to a different Target. Start going to a different grocery store. It's quiet because we've all had the thought about doing it. I'm not even going to drive down that road because I want to see that person's car. And the reason I know it is because guess what? I've felt it all. I've felt it. I've had the temptation to turn that hurt into a grudge and let it kind of affect way more of my life than I wanted to care to admit that it did. But guess what? As Christ followers, avoidance isn't the answer. Avoidance isn't the answer, you guys. We are supposed to do our part to work it out. I love what it says in James chapter 3, verses 17 and 18. It's in the Message version. It's so good. I want you to listen close. It says, real wisdom, God's wisdom, begins with a holy life and is characterized by getting along with others. It is gentle and reasonable, overflowing with mercy and blessings, not hot one day and cold the next, not two-faced. You can develop a healthy, robust community that lives right with God and enjoy its results only, everybody say only if you do the hard work of getting along with each other, treating each other with dignity and honor. So good. If you've ever wondered how we're supposed to be as followers of Jesus, this is a great picture. And if you only pulled 2 words out of that entire passage, I would say pull these 2 out, dignity and honor. If we could just treat each other with dignity and honor in our churches, in our families, in our communities, in our neighborhoods, if we could just treat each other with dignity and honor, I'll tell you what, we'd take care of a whole lot of mess. A whole lot of mess. And that's our job as followers of Jesus, to be examples of that. See, here's the deal, and I love that, you guys. You see that we can build like a robust, healthy community. We can build a healthy, robust family. We can build a healthy, robust neighborhood, but we are only going to enjoy its benefits, the results. Do you see that? If we do the hard work. That's not taking the other hallway. That's not avoiding their calls. That is hard work. Treating each other with dignity and honor. Let's do the hard work. That is my challenge to us as a church today. That we would be a church, that we treat each other with dignity and honor, and we do that hard work, the inconvenient work, the time-consuming work, the heart work as well as hard work of getting along with each other. And then what does Paul do here? He actually addresses another group of people. He says, and oh yes, Zygus, I'm going to say Ziggy, okay? Since you're right there to help them work things out, do your best with them. Since you're right there. Now, theologians believe that this wasn't necessarily a person, Ziggy, okay? But it was probably referring to a group of people that were in the church, or maybe to everyone that was listening in. So Paul is saying to everyone who's hearing the letter, help them work it out. I'll be a part of the solution, not the problem. Be a part of the solution, not the problem. See, this can be difficult in relationships because when somebody has a grudge and other people know about the grudge, or the grudge is being shared with other people, there's actually 2 people who are responsible here. There's the sharer of the person who has the grudge, who's the sharer, and then there's the hearer. There's the hearer. So let me speak to the sharer for a second. Sharers. We have a responsibility when we have a grudge, when we have a hurt. Because what we are tempted to do when we have a grudge is we're tempted to spill it out to our spouse, to our friend, to our sister, to our neighbors. And now we even have this amazing thing called social media that we can just everywhere, right? You know what I mean? So-and-so hurt me. And even we don't use names. We just refer to the situation that everybody else can figure out, right? We do it. We spill it out. I want to have a group of people come up here, my 4 individuals, because I want to show you something, and I want you to get this visually, okay, you guys? Because whenever you share a grudge, you are passing along the weight of what you are carrying. Whenever you share a grudge, see, if I'm up here and I'm like, I have a hurt, okay? I have my hurt. And then what I do is I share that with Lisa. And I'm like, Lisa, don't you feel bad for me? So-and-so hurt me. Well, friend, you are. Just kidding. And then I give this to John. I'm like, John, well, maybe John is social media, okay? I just spew it out on social media, okay? That was very appropriate that I just said that. Anyway, all of a sudden, because what really happens when I do stuff on social media, I'm basically spewing out 5-pound weights to every single person who's reading it. The weight of what I am carrying, I've now just plopped into somebody else's lap. Then I come to Bridget here and I'm like, Bridget, you're a friend. I'll share it with you. Well, now she's holding this, okay? And then this would be symbolic of my family, Caden is my son. I come home and I'm just so mad. I'm so ticked off. So I spew it out, and guess who's holding the weight now? My kid. So this is what happens when we just kind of throw our hurt around. What happens is, see, the Bible talks in Galatians about carrying each other burdens. These aren't burdens. These are grudges. When we carry each other's burdens, the weight is divided. When we carry each other's grudges, the weight is multiplied. This weight is multiplied. Now I'm not just holding a weight. She's carrying my weight. Because now she's like, what happened there? Now I'm talking about that person. Now she has a skewed version or a skewed viewpoint of that person, that situation, and of something that each and every one of them weren't meant to carry. I have a responsibility as someone who has been hurt to be wise. And that's the thing. When we're hurt, though, we don't think rationally. But I want us to see what happens when we share, because all of a sudden, my burden, my grudge, they have to carry it now. And that's no fair to them. It's no fair to them. Give them a hand clap. Thank you, guys. So the sharer has responsibility. Well, then there's the hearers, because they were the hearers right there, okay? They were the hearers. What is the responsibility of the hearer? Well, I think a lot of times that, well, if somebody shared something with me, my job as the friend is to just coddle them and be like, no, that's okay, that's right. That person shouldn't have hurt you. They shouldn't have done that, right? We're just kind of like, whatever, it's okay for you to kind of wallow in that for a while. And I'll hold that burden with you. You can give me part of that. But a lot of times what we need to do as hearers, when somebody brings me something, my responsibility with that weight they've given me is to actually hand it back to them and say, listen, because I love you, I'm telling you, you need to let that go. Because I love you. Because I love you, I have sat and listened, but I am telling you that I know this has hurt you. I know that person has hurt you, but guess what? You are better than that. You have more interesting things to do with your life than to sit there and wallow in the hurt that someone has done to you. And I know it's hard. It's hard. Because really what we want to do is we want to be those people that just kind of sit with our friends and have a big pity party all together. I had a party last night. It was a pity party, and I invited all my friends. But may we be the type of friends that when somebody brings us something, we say, okay, God, what am I supposed to do with this? And let's help each other, because I love what what Paul says there is that since you're right there, so-and-so, help them work it out. Do your best with them. So fill in your name, okay? Bob, Sue, Jenny, Caleb. Since you're right there, do your best to help them work it out. Do your best. The sharer and the hearer both have a responsibility. Let's speak the truth in love and not let each other wallow in a grudge. We have far more interesting things to do with our lives, right? Right. So then Paul says in verse 3, these women, they worked for the message. Remember, that's the good news. They are the church leaders. They are moving and grooving. They're doing all kinds of things for God. In fact, they worked hand in hand with Clement and me. And with the other people in the church, the veterans, they worked as hard as any of us. Like I mentioned before, these women were active. They were doing amazing things for God. Hello, they partnered with the Apostle Paul. How cool is that? But I want us to notice something here. I want us to notice that the word worked is in the past tense. It's in the past tense. And could it be that whatever their grudges were, it was getting in the way of their work that they were supposed to be doing for God? That grudge, that hurt, whatever it might be, now the work has ceased. So what's Paul saying here? He's saying, listen, they needed to get back to work. Get back to work. But you know why they couldn't, right? Their hands were too busy holding grudges. Their hands were too busy holding grudges. You know, some of you, it has literally frustrated you to no end that I have been hanging on to these weights the entire time I've been speaking. It's distracted you. You're like, why is she, you're all shaking your head. You're like, seriously, I'm glad you're addressing it, because if we walked out of here and you did not talk about those weights, I was gonna be really ticked off. You're like annoyed with me. Why are you still hanging on to those? What are you doing? I mean, you can't even flip the pages of your notes properly. You know I need a drink of water, but I can't take one because I've got the weights in my hands. I'm fumbling around, giving them their weights. Do you know why? Because I'm busy holding things I shouldn't be holding on to. I'm busy holding on to the weights. They're fumbly. They're awkward. And this is what we look like when we hold grudges. If I could have the keys come up and play. This is what we look like when we hold grudges. Do you know that when you hold grudges, you become weak? When you're carrying things that you should not be carrying. Some of us think, well, I'm holding my grudge, I'm getting muscles. You work out something, if I worked these out for like 20 minutes, good. But if I'm carrying them around all morning long, guess what I'm gonna be? Tired. Some of you are tired because you have been carrying around a hurt. You have been carrying around an offense. You have been carrying around something that somebody said to you or they did to you, and you're just like, you're iron fisting it. You're like, I'm not letting go. I'm not letting go. But I want to remind you about the tone that the Apostle Paul has in verse 1. It's my tone to you today. This isn't a uppercut to you today. This is you are loved. You bring such joy, but I want you to stick with it. I want you to keep going. I want you to stay steady. Woo. I want you to persevere. I want you to keep going. But you will not be able to accomplish, listen to me, all God has for you if you are busy holding on to these, if you're busy holding on to your grudge. You are so busy, some of us, and I have been this way in my life sometimes. We are so busy gripping our grudge that we can't use the two amazing hands God gave us to do his work. You want to change the world, but your hands are too busy holding grudges. And what you hold in your hands will affect your heart. It will. It will. So can we be mature enough as followers of Christ to be people who drop the grudge? That we drop the grudge. Because I can tell you, if I have seen it once, I have seen it 1,000 times. People get a little bee in their bonnet, a little burr in their saddle, right? And it affects everything. They start walking down the different hallway. They go to the different service. They avoid the people. They don't have the phone calls. They go to a different church now because I don't know what it was. Can I have the heart of Paul? I don't know what happened. All I know is that I love you both and you need to work it out. You need to work it out. You need to start to believe the best in other people again. You need to do the hard work, the complicated, messy, hard work of getting along with each other. You got to do it. Now, some of you, can I just, let's just be real honest here, okay? Some of you, the weights that you're carrying are kind of like these 5-pounders. It's like somebody looked at you wrong. I think that Pastor Jeremy, I think he stared at me and he was looking at me weird and I don't know what happened. I think he hates me. I don't know. No, that's a little 5-pounder. Some of you, you just have to learn to believe the best in people. Okay, some of you are carrying around 50-pound weights. Somebody really hurt you, really bad. If we were to see you in the spiritual realm, you have knives in your back. I've been there, okay? I've been there. But here's the deal. You still got to drop the grudge, because what I have learned is that I have been the person who is driving in my car having a conversation with somebody in my mind over and over and over again. And I held on to my grudge so tightly because I thought if I let it go, that means I let them off the hook. And they don't deserve to be let off the hook. But you know what? I was so distracted that I was not fulfilling. I knew everything God was asking me to do because my mind was preoccupied, my hands were preoccupied, I was tired, I was exhausted from carrying things that I shouldn't have been carrying. And those big 50-pound weights, can I tell you how they work? You drop them, and then sometimes we think that should be it, just should be one time, and it's done. But no, what happens is then you go to bed that night and you wake up the next morning and it's you're how did that get there? I didn't even pick that up. It's there because it's been such a deep hurt. You know what you do? You get up. Next day, you drop it. Then you wake up the next morning. It's there. You get up, you drop it. Some of you, I've been there. Every 5 minutes, you're dropping the weight. Every 5 minutes, dropping the weight. Because that's how much you think about it. It's just so in you. The hurt was so deep. But can I tell you, start somewhere. Drop it once, and then drop it again tomorrow, and drop it again the next day. And then what happens, you'll be then you'll start having to only drop it once a week. And it'll be every other week. And then it'll be every month. And then it'll be I don't even think about that person anymore. I don't think about that situation, but you have to start somewhere. So start today. And can I just be your pastor today? Can I just be your pastor? It happens to all of us, you guys. Big, little, small, little things, big, whopper hurts. But let's start somewhere so that we can get busy doing what God has asked us to do. We have far more interesting things to do with our lives than to hold on to grudges. They take way too much time. They take way too much energy. And God has work for you to do. Let's not make it past tense. Let's get back to work and start dropping those grudges. Let me pray for you. Heavenly Father, I come before you today. I thank you so much for this amazing church. God, today is not a spank. Today is you and your heart saying, I don't want my people holding grudges. There's way too much to do. There's way too many people who need to hear the good news of Jesus. There's way too many people who need to see a church that is unified. There are way too many people who need to have the poor need to be fed, and the weary need to have their heads lifted. And God, we're part of that solution, but when we're so busy holding on to grudges, petty things or big things, God, we can't be about the Father's business. And so, God, we simply today, with open hands, God, we say, we're dropping the grudges. We're dropping the grudges today. And for some of us, it will be a one-time thing and it's gone. Others of us, it will be a long process. But God, give us the courage, give us the strength, give us the vision that you have for our lives, so that we have the courage to be able to drop the grudges. God, we love you. Thank you for your heart for us. Thank you for your goodness. Give us strength. Give us everything we need to live out this life you've asked us to. In Jesus' name. And everybody said, amen. Love you guys.